Listening to the IFF TV podcast.
Hello, Irish Football Fan TV. This is the match preview. Qatar take on the Republic of Ireland in Hungary. I'm joined on the line by Gary Spain. Gary, how are you?
All good, Paul. Looking forward to the game tomorrow night and hoping that we can finally get the first win under Stephen Kenny.
Yeah, I can't believe we're still waiting on that win, especially after the other night and stuff like that. But we obviously know how that result went. So, yeah, we're on to this game now. Actually, Qatar, funny enough, they beat Luxembourg and they beat Azerbaijan. So, you've done a little bit of research on them. So, if you want to, take us through and talk us through your research on them pretty much, so you kind of give people who don't know a little bit of an insight on them.
Sure. Well, I think the big thing from their point of view, Paul, is they're hosting the World Cup, as most people know, next year in November 2022. And it's absolutely crucial for them. They've never played in the World Cup. They've put billions and billions of euros into this to make sure it's going to be some show. And their squad, it's all home-based. So... But now there's advantages and disadvantages. They obviously don't have players playing in the top leagues in Europe or anywhere else, but it does mean they can get their squad together whenever they want. And so they're basically doing tours of the world at this stage. They're playing in our qualifying group. They've obviously given UEFA a lot of money for that. They were meant to play in the Copa America, but they've had to pull out of that now. But they're still playing in the CONCACAF Gold Cup in the summer. And they've already played a number of games, and they're playing. I mean, regularly, as you said, they beat Luxembourg, they beat Azerbaijan, they drew with Costa Rica. They had a bit of a hammering against Ghana there recently. So it's difficult to know what we're going to come up against. The one player we need to look out for is their number 10. He's a midfielder, Hassan Al-Hados, and he's 30 years of age, but he got both the goals in the win over Azerbaijan, and he's got more caps than anybody else in Qatari history. He's already on 137 caps, and I'm sure he's one that Stephen will have to keep an eye on tomorrow night. But other than that, I don't actually know a lot about Qatar. I mean, they're obviously very well known in this part of the world because they're major sponsors of Barcelona and they actually own PSG. So they have a huge influence in European football. But it's quite a small country. They've trawled to get players. They've had some controversy in the past because they tried to naturalize some Brazilians. But the current squad is all either Qatari-born people or Qatari nationalized people, because they do have a lot of migrant workers in the country as well. So it's a bit of an unknown quantity, really, but it will be interesting to see what they have tomorrow night, because one thing's for sure, they are going to want to put on a big show when they host the World Cup next year, and they're going to want to have their squad in tip-top condition. And by playing against European opposition, I think that's how they're going to do this. So they're going to take tomorrow night's game very, very seriously. It'll be like a competitive game for them. And it will be difficult for us then.
I think it should be like a competitive game for us. I mean, I think the players will want to show pride tomorrow night and, maybe restore faith in the team. And I was seeing some pictures earlier of Seamus Coleman having a team talk with the team. I'm sure he had some more home truths to say with the team and stuff like that. But obviously on Qatar, and there's all these protests going on, with teams and stuff like that. Norway and Germany and Netherlands, are just to name a few, have all kind of come out in protest against Qatar because of obviously the human rights stuff. You want to touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, as I said, they have spent billions in building these stadiums for the World Cup. And unfortunately, I mean, I've actually never been to Qatar, but it gets incredibly hot there in the summertime. It can touch 50 degrees centigrade. And unfortunately, a number of people, I think it's thousands of people actually, migrant workers have died in the constructions of these stadiums. And that's obviously, it has to be a massive concern. And that's why people, the Norwegians and the Germans, etc., are protesting. And so I don't know. I don't think we're going to see any protest tomorrow night, but who knows what's going to happen.
Well, Stephen had mentioned that if the players wanted to, in his press conference earlier, that they can, and it's something that they haven't discussed. They hadn't discussed at the time. They probably have by now, so it'll be interesting to see. But I have an article here up on aljazeera.com, and it just says, why are football teams protesting against the Qatar 22 World Cup? The qualifiers, Norway, Germany, and Netherlands footballers have protested Qatar's treatment of migrant workers, as you just said. Footballers are staging on-field protests in the 2022 World Cup qualifiers to highlight Qatar's treatment of migrant workers and its human rights record that have been under the spotlight since it was awarded the hosting of next year's tournament. A media report published earlier this month alleged that 6,500 migrant workers from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka have died in Qatar since 2010, when the country was awarded hosting rights of the 2022 tournament. Qatar responded by saying that the mortality rate among these communities is within the expected range for the size and demograph of the population. There has also been protests against harsh working conditions, especially during the summer when temperatures often go past 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit, wage abuse, including on a World Cup stadium site, and a lack of rights afforded to migrant workers who comprise about 95% of Qatar's population. So you can kind of get the idea. Just as the teams that have protested, the Netherlands national team wore T-shirts emblazoned with the words "Football supports change." Norway players wore shirts stating human rights and on and off the pitch, and then the German team lined up with black shirts with each one white letter to spell out human rights, but its football association said it was opposed to boycotting the World Cup. So there's a little bit of a controversy surrounding the fixture, obviously regarding all other national teams or whatever happens here between the players protesting or whatever, that's going to be optional pretty much, but more so on a football sense. And from our point of view, I think we're going to see a lot of fresh faces tomorrow. I think we're going to see some players brought back in that haven't played. Shane Duffy, I'd probably say, will come back into the side. I'd say Coleman will take a step out because 3 days in such a quick turnaround. I don't think he basically said that Christie would be involved anyway in the press conference earlier, and Ryan Manning. So you can see there already there's a bit of a change. I'd say he'd probably go back to the 4-3-3. Because he doesn't have Stevens and Doherty, so I'd say a 4-3-3 would be most likely,
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one, Paul, because I was saying before the start of this window that the Qatar game doesn't really matter, and it could be something that Stephen could use to look to the future, to build, to try things out, and likewise for the games in the summer. Now, unfortunately, the way this window has gone, and we're now into 10 games without a win, I think he will be a bit more focused on trying to win the game now, as opposed to trying stuff out, because there was quite a lot of negative press after Saturday night. And I'm sure he wants to bounce back with a positive result, which is a bit unfortunate because in reality, these friendlies, the result doesn't really matter, and it is normally an opportunity to try things, to experiment, to try players out. So I think you're right to your point that some of the peripheral members of the squad, like Cyrus Christie, will get a game. Ryan Manning should start, as you say, but I don't think he wants to make too many changes because another defeat could be bad for morale.
Yeah, I agree, but as well as that, you got to think of players going back to their clubs. You already look at now Stevens and Doherty are gone back injured to their clubs, so that's obviously going to have to be taken into account. Also, the fact that there's players there that haven't kicked the ball throughout this whole international window, that will probably be looking at this game as a way of trying to get back into the team. I definitely say someone like maybe Daryl Horgan and even Ronan Curtis and stuff like that, who weren't used at all. Ronan Curtis wasn't even in the matchday squad the other day. So Troy Parrott as well. So there's all these players who haven't kicked the ball. Jeff Hendrick as well, don't forget. So there's players like that are still in amongst the squad there, and probably, I think, should come into the team just because just the close games, the games in such close proximity, really. That's all it would be for me. Obviously I want to win this game, but I think that the players that could come in and be fresh could help us win the game.
Yeah, I suppose it's a good point. It's the third game in 6 days. So for players to play in all 3 games, it's going to be really taxing. I don't think their clubs will be too happy because they'll obviously have a club game on Saturday. So, yeah, it's the balance between giving guys a chance. And I mean, I would hope the likes of Jeff Hendrick does play and puts his hand up and says, I should have been playing, and he puts in a performance that makes it very difficult for Stephen to leave him out next time. And so maybe we'll see more changes than I'm expecting. It's probably hard to tell. Stephen is also having a look at the players in training, which we don't get to see, obviously, and he knows who's in form, who's maybe a bit leggy, who's still going full tilt. So that, I'm sure, will influence his thinking as well.
But in your opinion, how important is it to get a result in this game for Stephen's sake more than anybody?
Well, you see, there's just been so much negativity after the Luxembourg game. It probably is more important than it should be to get a result. I mean, if we do win tomorrow night, we will end on a positive. It will get the monkey off his back. I really hope Stephen gets to at least finish out this campaign. And hopefully he's been told that already, because I hope the FAI do make that decision, because I still think this can be turned around. And if that's the case, then he has tomorrow night. He's the 2 friendlies in June against Hungary and Andorra. And he can use those to and spend a lot of time with the squad, particularly in June, and to get things right. And hopefully we'll have a lot better performances in the autumn. So normally I'd say it wouldn't matter too much, but having lost to Luxembourg, if we lose, or even depending if we don't perform well against Qatar tomorrow night, I think the knives could be out again, and the pressure could just be mounting and mounting. And I mean, I've seen some horrible stuff on social media, and I think if we can get the win tomorrow night, that'll certainly ease the pressure. And I think things will get forgotten about, really. I think the summer camp should be able to be done in relative peace and quiet. I don't think there'll be too much focus on those games. And there's 6 months to the Portugal game in September. And that's when hopefully we'll see a much better performance.
Yeah, I think you're right in what you say there. It is. I think the whole nation just wants to see us win a game at this point. I think it's just, the first game against Serbia, we just wanted to see us score. That's how bad it was. Now we want to see us just win a game. We don't care how. We don't care if it goes in off someone's arse. As long as it goes in and we win the game, I think that's just what people want to see. Good football or not, I think at this stage, just people just want to see a win, which you can understand. So, in saying that, yeah, look, I want Stephen Kenny to succeed. I really do. I know you do too. And watching him and this team go through this, it's hard. It's hard for fans. It's hard for him. It's hard for the squad. It's hard for everybody. And it's not a nice feeling when you're kind of looking at us going, like, when are we actually ever going to score? It reminds me of like a team fighting for survival in the Premier League. They have good all-round play, but ultimately they just can't put the ball in the net. It's kind of similar to Brighton in a way, in the fact is we play all this nice football, but when it gets up to a certain point, we just don't do anything with it, and then we concede, and then we lose the game. Because that's what's happened to Brighton a lot this season. It kind of just reminds me in a way. I'm not saying we play anything like. I think they play better football than us, and they're more urgent. But we need to see urgency in our play tomorrow. We need to create chances, more chances than we did against Luxembourg, and probably more chances than we did against Serbia. we need to be right at it. In some ways, this, even though it's a friendly and it means nothing, in some ways it's a bit of a cup final. And as you said there about players like Jeff Hendrick saying, put your hand up and get yourself back into the team. This is a chance for them to say, hang on a minute, I shouldn't have been dropped, and I'm going to show you why I shouldn't have been dropped. Or else they'll come in and put in a performance, and Stephen will say, yeah, I was right to drop you. But as you said there, the camp obviously in June, we're now, it seems as though we're going to play Hungary and Andorra. So, I mean, he's going to have 9 days to work with the squad. So that's why I think the result tomorrow is crucial. So he gets definite time to then, come into June and then actually have the time with the players. Because I think that time with the players would be hugely beneficial. And I think that's when you'll start seeing a real difference in things. And I'd say we'll probably win, well, one of the two games. Hopefully two. But I don't want to get too carried away. We'll have a preview on that close to the time for sure. But I just think we need a result tomorrow and then carry the momentum into June. That would be the ideal scenario. End this horrible window on a positive. I would love to see someone like Troy Parrott score the winner and we win the game, and there's optimism and excitement and just happy vibes that we've won a game. One of our young players has scored, and we're on to bigger and better things then, hopefully.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, unfortunately, there's been stuff in the media that, some people are calling for Stephen to be sacked this week. Now, I actually don't think that's going to happen, and I really hope it doesn't happen. But I think a win tomorrow night would hopefully end that speculation. But no matter what the result is tomorrow night, I really hope it doesn't happen. I hope he gets that June window, because 2 years ago in June, Stephen was able to bring his under-21s to Toulon. And he had a couple of weeks to work with them, got to the semi-finals of the tournament, did really well. And they really benefited from that. And he hasn't had that with the senior squad yet. I mean, he got the team together last Sunday night. He probably had training Monday, training Tuesday, and traveling as well. And to play in Serbia on Wednesday. So, and then another game 3 days later, and then another game tomorrow night. So 3 games in 6 days. So it has been really intense. He hasn't had the time to work with the players. And we all know the issues with COVID and injuries last autumn. So I really hope he gets this June window. He gets the time with the squad. And hopefully we'll see the benefits of that in the autumn. Because I think Stephen definitely deserves to see out this campaign. I think he will be. I don't think the FAI are going to be trigger happy on this, and I hope I'm right on this. But I think he will get the time, and then in November, December, we can take stock of where we are at that point. We'll have a number of other games under our belt. But I think tomorrow night will help. A win would be absolutely huge. Because it won't be easy. Qatar are going to treat this very seriously. It's their biggest game of this window. They will see us as being the biggest team, and I think we are as well. We are bigger than Luxembourg and Azerbaijan, despite Saturday night's result. So they're going to be really up for it. I'm sure we're going to see their best side, but I'm hoping for a performance tomorrow night, and really hoping for a win.
Yeah, I agree with all that. The only thing is, I just want to see from Stephen is proper in-game management. I felt as though when it wasn't working the other night, he maybe should have made something happen or tried to make something happen a lot sooner than he did. I felt the subs were all quite late, and I'm hoping that this time around that he will, bring on subs maybe just after the hour mark to give them the half an hour to get into the game. I think bringing players on with 10 minutes to go, it's not enough time to let them, get up to the tempo and the speed of the game. I think I think that's something he needs to improve on as a manager, if I'm being honest. And I'm not really that critical of Stephen that often, but I do think there's times where his in-game management lets him down as well. And we've seen it a couple of times over the 10 games, I think, where subs should have been brought on a lot earlier than they had been. And he was letting players stay out there who just weren't really offering much at all. So I'm hoping tomorrow, if it comes to the stage to the hour mark and we're not looking like we're doing much, that he brings in players who are going to provide that spark and that energy to make something happen, or maybe that bit of creativity to create a chance. So that's how I feel about it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that was a criticism of Stephen, even in his hugely successful Dundalk days, when they were playing group stages and beating teams and picking up points in the group stages of the Europa League and winning whatever number of leagues it was. I mean, Cork won one, but Dundalk won about four, I think. And so they were so successful under Stephen. Now, he still got a bit of criticism over that. And I think it's fair comment on the other night, Paul. I think it could have been done better. But ultimately, Stephen is the manager, and he is going to live and die by those decisions. And it will be interesting to watch the substitutions tomorrow night if things are not going right. And I think you're right, and I do expect we'll see them a bit earlier. I mean, in particular, I know Luxembourg had just scored, but throwing guys on in the 88th minute, I don't know what you could have expected at that point.
But even against Serbia, it was when we conceded the third, then 3 subs came on. You know, it's should have been on a little bit earlier, in my opinion. But look, he is where he is on merit, so you know you have to kind of trust him in some ways, don't you? I mean, that's what he was given the job for, in fairness. But look, as I say, I want Stephen to do well. I know you want him to do well, and let's just please hope for a win tomorrow. I'm going to get your prediction before I let you go. So, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling confident, Paul. I think we're going to sneak it 2-1, but it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I was thinking 2-1 myself earlier. I think I'll go with 1-0 though. Because we're not scoring that many. They're not. You know, sometimes when you score a couple, then they start flying in. But then we were 0-0 against Luxembourg and just didn't look. So I'm hoping a 1-0 win. No matter how we do it, we just need a win tomorrow. I don't care how, but it just for everybody's morale, we need a win. And I'm sure our players will be treating it as serious as the Qatar team as well, because they'll know how much a victory. Well, they're effectively playing for the manager's future.
Well, I don't think it's that serious. I hope not. I think no matter what happens tomorrow night, Stephen is going to get June. I could be wrong in this, but I think he will get June, and I think he will.
But they need to put in a performance.
Start in the autumn. But I would like to see a performance. I certainly would.
Yeah, well, I just think they need to show more than they showed in the game against Luxembourg, and you know, because ultimately it's going to reflect on the manager no matter what. Even though all he could do is pick the team and set them up. But anyway, yeah, let us know your thoughts on what you think this game is going to play out, how it's going to play out, what your final score is, how do you think we'll win, and. Yeah, we actually got a bit of criticism the other day saying we were very biased towards Stephen Kenny. So let us know what you think of Stephen in the comments as well, without being, you know, ridiculously. With some of the comments I was reading were a bit crazy, but anyway, leave your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and don't forget to subscribe. We'll speak to you soon. Thanks for watching.